The Lakers have been busy. Lakers are trading center DeAndre Ayton to the Wizards for Jaden Hardy and 2 second-round picks. Ayton playing 1 season in L.A., averaging career lows of 12.5 points.
A former #1 overall pick has just been traded for a backup guard and 2 future second-round picks that won't even convey until the next decade. At first glance, it sounds unbelievable, yet somehow both teams involved are walking away, satisfied with the deal. That's what makes the DeAndre Ayton trade so fascinating. The Los Angeles Lakers are happy to move on from him, while the Washington Wizards are excited to bring him in. Normally, when a trade looks this one-sided, one team clearly wins and the other loses. In this case, both organizations have logical reasons to feel good about the outcome. To understand why, we need to look at how things reached this point. According to reports, the Lakers sent DeAndre Ayton to Washington in exchange for Jaden Hardy and 2 future second-round picks. For a player who started most of the season and was expected to play a major role, the return seems surprisingly small. However, the context is important. After making several major roster moves, the Lakers had very limited draft assets available to trade. Their collection of future picks had already been heavily depleted, leaving them with almost no flexibility. By acquiring 2 additional second-round selections, Los Angeles quietly replenished part of its draft capital, while also creating financial flexibility for future moves. On the other side, Washington viewed the trade from a completely different perspective. The Wizards are in the middle of a long-term rebuild and have focused on acquiring talented players who may still have untapped potential. Jaden Hardy had struggled to find a consistent role because of the team's crowded backcourt, making him somewhat expendable. For Washington, taking a chance on a former #1 overall pick was a gamble worth making. The bigger question is how Ayton's value dropped so dramatically. Back in 2018, DeAndre Ayton entered the NBA as one of the most highly regarded prospects in basketball. The Phoenix Suns selected him first overall ahead of future stars like Luka Doncic and Trae Young. At the time, the decision was widely supported. Ayton possessed elite size, athleticism, and the potential to become a dominant two-way center. For several years, it looked like Phoenix had made the right choice. Ayton became a key contributor on a Suns team that reached the NBA Finals in 2021. He consistently produced double-doubles and developed into a reliable interior presence. His performances eventually earned him a massive 4-year contract worth nearly $133 million. That contract, however, marked the beginning of a different chapter. As expectations increased, Ayton's development appeared to stall. Questions about his consistency, effort level, and overall impact became more common. While he remained productive statistically, many observers felt he never evolved into the franchise cornerstone that teams expect from a #1 overall pick. Eventually, Phoenix moved on from him as part of the blockbuster Damian Lillard trade. Ayton was sent to Portland, where he spent 2 seasons on rebuilding teams that struggled to compete. Although he posted respectable numbers, he failed to significantly raise his value around the league. Last summer, Portland chose to buy out his contract, and Ayton even gave up a portion of his guaranteed salary in order to become a free agent and join a contender. That contender was the Los Angeles Lakers. On paper, his lone season in Los Angeles was not a disaster. Ayton averaged roughly 12.5 points and 8 rebounds per game while shooting an extremely efficient percentage from the field. Those numbers suggest a productive starting center, yet statistics alone don't tell the entire story. The first major issue was reliability around the basket. Despite his size and physical tools, Ayton frequently struggled with basic plays that elite centers are expected to finish consistently. Missed catches, fumbled passes, and lost scoring opportunities became a recurring frustration. The second issue was impact. Even when his box score numbers looked solid, there were stretches where he failed to influence games the way a player with his talent should. Coaches, teammates, and fans often expected greater energy, stronger defensive presence, and more consistent engagement. That disconnect between talent and production has followed Ayton throughout much of his NBA career. For the Lakers, moving on was ultimately about flexibility and future planning. For the Wizards, the trade represents a low-risk opportunity to see whether a former top prospect can rediscover his potential in a new environment. In other words, Los Angeles gained assets and financial freedom, while Washington acquired a player who still possesses enough talent to potentially outperform the modest cost it took to acquire him. That's why this unusual trade leaves both sides feeling like winners.
He's had trouble catching the ball. So we've ran a bunch of plays for him. He's just had trouble catching the ball. And, I don't know if that's the passing or if it's, him trying to get position. He hasn't been able to catch the ball.
But putting the jokes aside for a second, there's a real reason behind all of this. This was actually the first season in DeAndre Ayton's entire career where he didn't average double-double. He went from being that explosive 12 and 10 presence in Phoenix to more of a low-impact, screen setting, stay-out-of-the-way role man. And honestly, the biggest reason he got traded comes down to one number. The Lakers were 5.7 points per 100 possessions worse when he was on the floor. To put that into perspective, the Lakers now operate under a front office heavily influenced by analytics-driven thinking. These are decision makers who prioritize impact over raw stats. And by every meaningful metric, the team performed better when Ayton wasn't playing. What makes this even more concerning is who his backup was: Jackson Hayes. It's not like an MVP-level player was replacing him. Yet somehow, the team improved with their starting center on the bench. When that happens, it tells you everything you need to know.
You almost have to get him out of your locker room because of the effect that he will have on the other guys because of this flagrant lack of urgency.
This is exactly the type of situation where one team is eager to move on from a player while another team is excited to take a chance on him. To understand why the Lakers were willing to part ways with DeAndre Ayton, you have to look beyond the box score. The Lakers didn't trade Ayton simply because of a disappointing plus-minus statistic. They moved him because they found a center they believed was a significantly better fit for their future, and keeping both players simply wasn't realistic. That center is Walker Kessler. Earlier in the offseason, Los Angeles made a massive investment to acquire Kessler from Utah in a sign-and-trade deal. The Lakers paid a steep price, giving up valuable future assets and committing major money to bring him in. This wasn't a short-term experiment or a depth move. Kessler was clearly identified as the franchise's long-term answer at center. In fact, many people around the league didn't even believe Kessler would be available. Yet the Lakers made him their top priority and ultimately got the deal done. The price was enormous. Los Angeles surrendered unprotected first-round picks in 2031 and 2033, along with additional draft considerations, before handing Kessler a 4-year contract worth approximately $130 million. Whether that move becomes a championship-defining decision or a future disaster remains to be seen. But one thing is clear, the Lakers are fully committed to him. And once Kessler arrived, Ayton's role became increasingly difficult to justify. According to reports, Kessler was one of the centers Luka Doncic wanted most. The Lakers believe he fits perfectly alongside both Doncic and Austin Reeves because of the way he plays. He's an elite rim protector, an efficient finisher around the basket, and exactly the type of vertical lob threat that thrives next to an elite playmaker. That fit matters. Luka's offensive game has always been built around creating opportunities for rim-running big men. Throughout his career, he has elevated centers who can set strong screens, roll hard to the basket, and finish above the rim. Kessler checks every one of those boxes. There are also signs that he's expanding his offensive game. In a limited sample, he showed a willingness to take three-point shots, suggesting he may eventually develop into a player who can stretch the floor as well. For the Lakers, Kessler represents the ideal modern center. Ayton, meanwhile, never seemed completely comfortable embracing that role. Earlier in the season, he openly expressed frustration about being asked to play more like Clint Capella's screen setting, rim-running center focused on doing the little things. Although he eventually accepted those responsibilities, the overall impact still wasn't where the Lakers wanted it to be. As a result, Ayton went from being a useful starter to becoming an expensive backup. Once Kessler was locked into the starting lineup, Ayton's $8 million salary became difficult to justify. The Lakers had already committed so many resources to reshaping their roster that every dollar suddenly mattered. That financial pressure is where the trade becomes even more important. Because Kessler arrived through a sign-and-trade, the Lakers became subject to strict salary cap restrictions. Operating under the league's first apron meant they could not exceed a certain spending threshold under any circumstances. after investing heavily in Kessler, extending Austin Reeves, and adding several other pieces to the roster. Los Angeles had almost no financial flexibility remaining. Their primary avenue for additional roster improvements was minimum contracts, meaning every bit of cap space carried value. By swapping Ayton's contract for Jaden Hardy's smaller deal, the Lakers created roughly $2 million in additional breathing room while also adding future draft picks. In simple terms, they turned a redundant player into financial flexibility and extra draft assets. From the Lakers' perspective, that's a logical move. They cleared salary, recovered valuable picks, and doubled down on the center they truly wanted. Whether it proves to be the right decision in the long run remains uncertain, but the reasoning behind it is easy to understand. And while the basketball side of the trade makes sense, it also sets up one of the most entertaining storylines in the NBA because for years, Anthony Davis repeatedly asked the Lakers to find a true center to play alongside him.
I like playing the 4. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. I like playing the 4. I don't really like playing the 5, but...
So what did the Lakers do after all those years of Anthony Davis asking for a true center? Absolutely nothing. For 6 straight seasons, they continued playing him at center despite his repeated requests for help in the frontcourt. Then, in a twist nobody saw coming, they traded Davis away for Luka Doncic. Suddenly, Anthony Davis found himself going from Los Angeles to Dallas and eventually landing in Washington, while the Lakers finally decided to do the exact thing he had been asking for all along. That's what makes this story so ironic. For years, Davis publicly said he preferred playing alongside a traditional center instead of being forced into the full-time 5 role. Yet the Lakers never fully committed to finding that long-term frontcourt partner during his tenure. Now, after moving on from him, they've invested heavily in Walker Kessler, a true rim-protecting center who perfectly fits the system they want to build around Luka Doncic. And the funniest part, near the end of the season, LeBron James openly talked about the Lakers needing a center as well, making the entire situation feel even more absurd in hindsight.
My guy AD said what he needed, and then he was gone the following week. So
when the Lakers suddenly invested heavily in a new center and then immediately traded away another one, NBA fans couldn't help but laugh at the irony. For years, Anthony Davis repeatedly asked the organization to bring in a true center so he could spend more time at power forward. Instead, the Lakers continued using him as their full-time center. Now, after Davis is gone, Los Angeles is finally building the exact type of frontcourt he always wanted. The situation became even funnier when former Lakers players started debating it publicly. Anthony Davis reacted to criticism of the Lakers front office with laughing emojis, while Kuzma defended the team by arguing that salary cap limitations made it difficult to acquire another big man during Davis' time in Los Angeles. Davis quickly pushed back, making it clear that he wasn't buying that explanation. But beyond the social media drama, there's a basketball reason this trade makes sense for Washington. The Wizards identified one of the smartest opportunities in team building, using a surplus at one position to address a weakness somewhere else. Washington already has plenty of young guards and wings, but its frontcourt depth was a major concern. Anthony Davis and Alexander Sarr are talented players, yet both come with durability questions. Sarr recently underwent surgery after suffering a foot injury, while Davis has battled injuries throughout much of his career. That made adding another capable big man a priority. By acquiring DeAndre Ayton, Washington gains valuable insurance and another legitimate starting caliber center. Even better, Ayton's arrival allows Anthony Davis to spend more time at power forward, the position he has preferred for years. For the Wizards, that's tremendous value considering what they gave up. They moved a guard who had limited opportunities and attached a pair of future second-round picks to acquire a former, one overall selection who still possesses significant talent. There's also reason to believe Ayton could be highly motivated. He enters the season on a contract year and reunites with assistant coach Cody Topper, who previously worked with him in Phoenix. A fresh environment and financial motivation could bring out a stronger version of the former top pick. The financial side of the deal makes the move even more appealing. Washington was able to absorb Ayton's contract using a previously acquired trade exception, meaning the organization didn't have to sacrifice meaningful rotation pieces to complete the deal. Looking at the bigger picture, the Wizards have quietly assembled one of the league's most intriguing young rosters. Between Trae Young, Anthony Davis, Alexander Sarr, Bilal Coulibaly, Keyshawn George, Trey Johnson, and top prospect AJ Dybinsa, the team suddenly has talent, depth, and long-term upside at nearly every position, that doesn't mean a championship is around the corner. This is still a young group that needs experience and development. But adding Ayton for such a modest cost is exactly the type of low-risk move rebuilding teams should make. As for the Lakers, the trade solved one problem but created two new ones. Los Angeles now needs a reliable backup center behind Walker Kessler and another defensive wing capable of complementing Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. Veteran centers may be available at a reasonable cost, but finding the right wing is far more complicated. That's where Jonathan Kuminga enters the conversation. The Lakers reportedly view him as an ideal target, hoping he can develop into the type of athletic two-way forward every contender needs. The challenge is finding a way to afford him under strict salary cap restrictions, and that's the real story. Trading Ayton wasn't the final move of the Lakers offseason. It was the move that made everything else possible. The organization is betting that Kessler fits Luka better. That additional financial flexibility will help improve the roster, and that future moves will fill the remaining holes. In the end, both teams accomplished their goals. Washington acquired a talented center at minimal cost, while Los Angeles gained flexibility and committed fully to its vision around Luka Doncic. The only difference is that the Wizards have already completed their move. The Lakers are still waiting to see whether the rest of their plan comes together.